welcome to Love Neo, and I'm the host today. My name is Long Fei.
Yeah, I'm Dennis. Nice to see everyone.
And it's our honor to have John from NGD Seattle here with us today. Hey, John, can you first introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, hello, Long Fei. Hello, Dennis. Hey, it's good to see you guys again, and thank you for having me on the show. My name is John deVadoss. I lead NGD Seattle with a focus on the developer experience here in the US. So thanks again.
So a lot of your professional life you spent in Microsoft. Maybe you can tell us a bit about that experience and what gave it to you, what kind of experience you think was the most valuable for you.
Definitely, yeah. I spent a long time at Microsoft. I learned a lot. I would say I learned a lot from maybe two projects in particular. The first one where I was leading architecture for the .NET platform. And that was a very challenging exercise. For the first time, Microsoft was building a platform at scale for developers. The second one, I would say, I had the fortune of being on the early team for the incubation of Microsoft Azure. And that was a particularly fulfilling project because, again, building a global platform, a truly computing platform at scale, for the very first time at that company, I had the unique window to see architecture, economics, strategy, operations, and obviously people as well. So made many mistakes, but I think we learned from the mistakes. So certainly for me, building platforms is really what I did and what I took away. So I'm a platform guy at the core, deep inside.
Okay, cool. So we know that after Microsoft, then you decided to join Neo. So what's the reason and why are you joining Neo? So we're gonna ask, does Don Fei offer you the highest salary? That's why you join us.
Yes, that's a very good question. So I would say two things, guys. Firstly, when I met Da Hong Fei, and I had a chance to talk in person with him in great detail, the first time we had dinner together, it was very clear to me that his vision and just him as a person, as a human being, what he was looking to build was a very compelling vision for me. And that was the first thing. The second thing is, again, as an architect, as a developer for me, the architecture of Neo, all the way from the protocol for consensus, designing abstractions like obviously Neo, the token, having a distinct gas abstraction, and also the focus on the developer experience. For me, it was very clear that there was no other platform like Neo from that architectural basis. And it was an offer I could not say no, absolutely.
All right. So now we have NGD, right? We have NGD Shanghai, and now we have NGD Seattle. Can you tell us a bit about NGD Seattle and what you guys will be doing there?
Definitely, I would love to. It's my pleasure. I would step back a little bit, Dennis, and I would say, if you look at the universe of developers across the world, so estimates approximately about 20, maybe even 21 million developers worldwide. And so here in NGD Seattle, we are focused on not just the blockchain developer, but the mainstream developer at large, the professionals who are building code. And when we look at it that way, there is a huge amount of work we could do to really change the world, to make it possible for every developer out there to build smart contracts, to build dApps. And so what we are doing here in NGD Seattle is to help take Neo mainstream, to make it very simple, very productive, and very natural for someone who is a professional developer, but doesn't necessarily have to be a blockchain developer. And that is the core. You will see in the fall in September with the launch of the Neo Toolkit as well as Neo Express. And then we have more plans, obviously, in the coming months and moving forward. But the key for me is there are 20 million developers. Let's make sure every single one of them knows Neo and knows how to use Neo.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any idea why do we choose Seattle? What's the reason behind it?
Yes, it's a very good question, obviously. So I would say, if you look at the US tech industry, there are two hotspots. There is one down in the valley, in Silicon Valley, and there is another in Seattle. I would say the valley in the last 5 years or 7 years has become very much consumer focused with the likes of Facebook and Google. So more of the ad-based industry consumer focus. Whereas if you look at Seattle with Amazon Web Services and Windows Azure and Google Cloud, Seattle has become the hub, the center of gravity for platforms. And so us, Neo, as a platform, as a blockchain platform, it was very natural for us to invest and to build and grow in the platform city, the cloud city, which is Seattle.
Yep, yeah. So, like in China, we have a lot of this city, Shanghai, Beijing, Shenzhen, and Hangzhou. They all have a different atmosphere of technology, of startups. Can you tell us a little bit about what it feels like in Seattle for the blockchain, for the the technology side?
And yeah, maybe like day-to-day life, what is it being a developer or a guy in this IT industry in Seattle?
Certainly, yeah. I mean, what is interesting about Seattle, I think, is you go to the Starbucks in the morning, obviously you come to work, you go for lunch, and you go for dinner in the evening. Every single time, the conversation you are hearing, the discussion at the table, at the coffee bar, in the office, is always about technology, and in particular about platform technology, right? About how we build a platform for other developers to build applications. And to me, that's very exciting. It feels like we are right in the cusp of this new blockchain wave, and so being in Seattle, being able to talk to developers from across the platform companies, across a variety of sectors, gives us a very unique feedback. We talk to the big guys, we talk to the small guys, we talk to the mid-sized guys. The level of feedback we get in terms of what they want to see, what they expect, is very good because it gives us a very good litmus test for what do we deliver to make sure we raise the bar for all developers building on the Neo blockchain platform.
I think basically you have a lot of experience for the developer, and now based on you said, like all the developer came at Seattle. So what do you think of the developer experience currently in blockchain? Because it's like a pretty new industry, and then I'm pretty sure we still have a lot to improve for the developer experience. What do you think of that?
Yeah, so I think we are still very early in this wave. We are very early in this shift towards building smart contracts and dApps. For example, even things that we expect and we know very well in the cloud stack, things like debugging, being able to effectively debug smart contracts, being able to effectively work with a private net, to make the developer life very simple, not just for one developer, but also for a team of developers. So when you look at a small team, 5 or 6 devs working together, there is huge opportunity for us to raise the bar, to really help them to collaborate and to be productive. So I would say, we have a very good start, a very strong start, but there is a lot of work to be done, which we are working on, obviously, in Shanghai and Seattle, to make sure that we have a first class, truly, at Seattle, we call this the F5 experience. We all know the F5 button, right? When you press the F5 button, things happen. And so we want to make it that simple for developers to launch a private net, F5 button, to build, to edit, to compile, and debug a smart contract. Make it very simple, F5 button, to deploy eventually on the test net and obviously eventually to main net, right? Make it the F5 button. So for me, my philosophy is I call this the F5 developer experience. And so block by block, piece by piece, together, we make it happen. And I believe in doing so, we will be unique in the blockchain industry in enabling this kind of an experience for developers.
Okay, so you have talked about F5 experience because we had a little internal discussion about what do you guys really mean by F5 experience. As a developer for myself, I know like when I press F5, sometimes some IDE just start the debugging process. I was like, is that probably what it means? So can you give us a little bit like clear answer to the community what F5 experience do you guys mean?
Certainly, yeah. For me, when we say F5 experience, there are a few things. So firstly, in terms of ease of use, You know, for example, like how do you use the private net? Being able to make it very simple, but simple doesn't mean simplistic. You know, simple meaning taking the complex and making it simple to use, simple to learn. That is one. The second one is in terms of productivity. You know, we want the developers in a matter of minutes, right, to be able to get something simple up and running, because we know, you know, developers sometimes can get bored easily. So we want to make it really, really productive and say, look, in about 4 or 5 minutes, a simple smart contract and go through the life cycle, right? Also by F5, we mean in terms of the collaboration. You know, we are in this world of collaboration across multiple developers, multiple teams. So being able to work together to take something from an idea to eventually a production, you know, application, and again making that as simple and as easy and as elegant as possible. The last thing is the word elegant. You know, design is critical in this new world for us, right? Just having the bits and just having some tools is good, but not good enough. Having a very elegant, clean, simple experience for the developer is also for me part of the F5 philosophy.
So while we are on this topic, like how this experience compares to you, like between blockchain and your previous experience, is development on blockchain really different from, you know, non-distributed systems?
That's a fantastic question. So, you know, you can wear two hats, right? If you wear the hat of a purely technical guy, you know, as a geek or as a geek developer, you're right, Dennis. You could say, you know, it is another decentralized system, right? You could say that. But I think on the other side, we also, as you very well know, and Longfei knows, there is an economic model.
Right.
Right? Clearly an intrinsic economic model. So I would say, for me, Dennis, for the first time in history, and we've seen the mainframe, you know, the PC, client server, cloud, right? But in history, no platform had a built-in economic model. So for the very first time, we have a platform that is unique. And so as developers and as we think of building apps.
Yeah, I compare that, you know, Wikipedia has always been around, and a lot of development, like on GitHub or whenever, like where people contribute and contribute a lot of their time and resources. And it's great for many projects to have some kind of economic incentive. Then it makes people even more interested, and it makes worthwhile for them. So it's definitely a very important thing to have.
Truly, because like you said, you know, we are all human beings, and human beings, we have desires, goals, and objectives, and being able to line up economic incentives is a great mechanism to make these things real. And so one point you said, you know, I would argue, Dennis and Longfei, that what we are building with Neo and the blockchain platform is not just an application. It is not even a system. It is more like an institution. Right? So we have to think through the possibility, but if we understand the potential, you know, the potential of what is possible in terms of economics, in terms of society and the world, I think is enormous, is tremendous. And so I'm a very big believer in terms of the fact that we are changing the world, and we will do even more.
Yeah, especially at this stage that like you and then also the Neo co-developers working on the Neo 3. I think it's going to be one of the most important platform that we are going to have to support the industry. So can you tell us a little bit your idea about Neo 3 and what do you think Neo 3 is going for?
Look, there is so many things I could talk about Neo 3 for, like, you know, for an hour. So I know you only have me for a few minutes. So look, what I like the fact that, you know, we are making the pricing changes. I think it's very significant from an economic perspective to drive even more adoption. I like the fact that we are decoupling the VM from the chain. I think as an architectural abstraction, it's a very profound shift. I like that. I like the fact, obviously, DBFT 2.0, I think it is, you know, it's already out there already. We know that. I think it's a very big milestone for Neo and for the industry. You know, I like the fact that we have native contracts. I think it's a huge step forward in terms of, again, the design and how we think about the conceptual and the logical view. I also like most recently across Neo and Ontology, the interop protocol and the architecture. I think that's a very big deal. And this work across the two chains could be a game changer, not just for us, but certainly across the industry. So I would say it's a huge list of things in terms of three. Of course, Neo ID and Neo FS. So I'm a very big fan of all the work, and also what we are doing with the toolkit and Neo Express in Seattle as well. So we have a pretty big basket of things, I think, to look forward to in terms of Neo 3.
Yeah. One of the goals of Neo 3 is to have it for large-scale commercial applications. Maybe you can share your thoughts about that as well.
Certainly. I mean, again, as a platform guy, I have a very strong interest in building platforms that are used by millions of people, not just developers across the world. This was the case with .NET. It was also the case with Azure as well. So I would say there are maybe two or three things. Firstly, developers. A platform is only as good as the developers and the tooling and what we give them in terms of the experience, right? Number two, incentives, like you said, that is earlier. I think efforts like EcoBoost are a very strong incentive for startups across protocols and also DApps to be able to motivate them to think, to dream big and really push the envelope. The third thing is obviously the stories we tell. The more we can share the stories we tell in terms of what people are doing, what our developers doing, we are human beings, we like stories. We like to hear stories. And the more that we as a community, Neo, NGD, the more we share the stories, the more compelling, it becomes to kind of light the fire, if you will. And that way then, we can truly, so I would say developers, number one, EcoBoost and similar efforts, and lastly, stories of what is happening, what is possible. Let's help our developers dream big, and we can use our stories to make that so.